T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time here with me today on iCritic Live, the podcast where we talk about entertainment, pop culture, and life in between. And today we are actually going to be reading an article that I wrote for the iCritic website. I mean, I do mention once in a while that I do have a website. And it's not visited as often as the YouTube channel or the podcast is, but I do visit it. If you are watching the video podcast of this on the iCritic Media channel, you can see this is what it looks like. And by the way, a quick shout out to Steve Tex, who was the one who created this website for me for, for a very good deal, I'll say. I like the work that he's done, and I love the new website. I mean, I have to spend the time to upload all the old reviews, but I am loving it. So if you want a website built, reach out to Steve Tex. It's under our partners tab on iCritic.net, and tell him I sent you. But anyway, I wrote this article on. I was originally going to do this a response to a Twitter post that I saw, and then it ended up getting so long I decided I would just transform it into an editorial, even though my website is not primarily known for music. I did have thoughts on this one, and I'm kind of glad I did that because I've been seeing kind of the same sentiment going around over and over again, and so I've just been basically sharing this article with everyone who has this stance. And so I'm going to read the article because these are my own words. So, what the heck? I'm going to use this as podcast fodder. But if you can't see the screen and you're just listening to the audio version, the article is called, "Does Taylor Swift See Her Fans as Dollar Signs?" Hint, yes, she does. So here's the article written by me. Does Taylor Swift only see fans as dollar bills? This is a question that was posed by someone in the following social media post. And we have an X post from Melanine on the Move, who is typically a theme park enthusiast, but she has some she's had opinions on Taylor Swift. And she is quoting a Taylor Swift post where she wrote, "File this under save your best for the final. I think my favorite moments from the tour were the acoustic surprises. So I went back into the studio with Max and Shellback to record acoustic unplugged versions on a few of the showgirl songs with brand new vocals. And they will be available on, this limited edition CD that's only going to be sold on her website. And by the way, there's 4 different covers of that album, and it's only going to be for a limited time." She pulls the whole Disney Vault thing. And Melanine says, "Damn, she really only sees them as dollar signs. That's so sad." And that's where my response comes in. And this is what I wrote. "The poster in question does not appear to be a fan of Taylor Swift. I mention this having read her post for a while now. To be clear, no one is required to like Taylor Swift or her music. Personally, I do. But that is not why I am writing this article coming to her defense. Kind of. But it is a fair question to look at what Swift is doing and ask if she is taking advantage of her fans. Swift's pitch here is that after she released her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, she went back to the recording studio and recorded acoustic versions of 2 of her songs, which will be sold exclusively on vinyl and CD. Not only that, but there will be 4 exclusive covers that will only be available for a limited time. Which means if you are planning to buy the album and are a hardcore Swiftie, you will have to buy her album at least 5 times to get all those covers. There's still that mainstream release to consider after all. Now, this is not the first time Swift has done this. In fact, pretty much all of her albums since Folklore have had multiple limited edition covers in addition to the standard cover that is released everywhere. Folklore, in fact, had 8. I should know. I bought them all. It has almost become tradition for every new album for fans to be given the option of buying multiple copies to complete the quote-unquote set. Her multiple covers of Midnights had the added benefit of creating an actual clock when you bought her specially made frame for them. Now, this practice is not without its criticism. The idea that she sells multiple covers of all of her albums, which are essentially all the same, is not exactly a practice that is shameless. But is this shameless act something to criticize? For my opinion, no, it is not. In fact, I will go a step further. Swift probably does only see her fans as dollar bills. Is there anything wrong with that? I would argue, no, there is not. Part of the reason I'm writing this is because I just rewatched a 4K re-release of the Satoshi Kon masterpiece Perfect Blue, in which stardom and obsessive fans' perceived ownership of people is a huge theme in this darkly disturbing movie. For years, it has been a point worth beating home that entertainers are not in personal relationships with their fans. They do not owe fans anything. They do not have a special connection with you just because you buy their music. And they have a right to privacy. These are facts that most people can agree with. So, if we are in agreement of these facts, then we must also acknowledge what they are. Glorified salesmen. They are people who are selling a product. In this case, their primary product is their music. If they are popular enough, they can also sell t-shirts, calendars, other merchandise, and even products in commercials. They sell overpriced concert tickets. Sometimes they lock their music behind the paywall of Tidal or Spotify if they get a big enough check to do so. And all artists do it. Beyonce, Maroon 5, Paul McCartney, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are in the music industry, you are selling your music. If you aren't selling your music, then you are not long for this business. And if you are selling your music, then all of your fans are potential dollar signs. In fact, let's talk about Paul McCartney for a bit, because a few years ago he released McCartney 3, completing his largely uneven McCartney trilogy of albums. While the album itself got decent reviews, I personally enjoyed it, there were critics that took issue with the extensive vinyl variant releases. Now, at this point, I put an image where you can see 4 different album vinyl variants of McCartney 3, although he really did like 12 or so. I just want to explain that in case you're not watching the visual version of this podcast. Continuing with the article. As you can see from the image above, a variety of different colored vinyls were released for the occasion in the addition to the standard release. All of these were released in limited quantities and most were retailer exclusives. It made one music critic review the album not as a music release, but as a marketing gimmick, and claimed that he had never seen an album release that was, quote unquote, less about the music before. To add credence to that argument, a few months later, the album McCartney 3 Imagined was released, in which other artists covered the songs on the album the way the music had, quote unquote, inspired them. Yeah, this album was so inspiring that a bunch of artists got together a day or two after the release to make a covered version that was recorded, perfected, and shipped to stores shortly after the main release. Give me a break. Yet it must have worked because the album was financially successful. All for music that I would dare you to hum 3 bars to without looking it up on a streaming service. But it worked. McCartney had successfully sold his music. And here's the thing. In a day and age where music is streamed more than bought, that is a mighty impressive feat. And since selling music is her job, it should be no surprise that Taylor Swift sees her fans as dollar signs. Can we blame her? She has fans who have proven over and over again to buy things she sells just because she says so. No one is forcing them to buy 5 different copies of an album or pay for a theatrical event that is essentially a commercial for a music album. Those people want what she's selling, and she would be stupid to not sell them what they want. Now, yes, some of her sales tactics do get off a Disney Vault vibe. Buy it now before it's too late. But there's a reason this is called show business and not show friends. Taylor Swift doesn't know you. While she likely appreciates that you like her music, her primary goal is to sell it. This is the job of every artist. If Rihanna or Bruce Springsteen could get away with what Swift is doing, you can bet they would. And let's not forget that Michael Jackson did a multi-variant release of his final album, Invincible, on top of his countless compilation releases. Again, you don't have to like Swift's music. You don't have to like her sales pitch. Heck, you can like her music and find her business practices shady. You can feel however you want about it. But don't kid yourself. Taylor Swift is in the music business, and her job is to sell you her music. That she is extremely successful in doing so by pulling sales stunts like this tells us more about her customers than it does about her. Now, since then, she has also announced that these albums would be made available on like iTunes or Apple Music. I'm so used to saying iTunes. On like Apple Music and to purchase digitally for 24 hours, which is one of the reasons I kind of wanted to rush this episode out. And some people have really ramped up like, oh my gosh, she is so greedy, she's evil. Guys, look, I'm not making a moral judgment on Taylor Swift as a person because I do not know her. But again, I don't think anything I wrote actually changes even after this additional revelation. Here's the bottom line. Taylor Swift is in the business of selling you her music. That's what she's here to do. And she is going to sell it however you can. And if she has found a way to do it and take advantage of people who let her take advantage of them, then they're going to do it. You know, I've had to come to her defense a couple times because, you know, some of these critics who say this in one breath are saying she is evil for doing this when she knows her fans are young, while at the same time, these very same people will defend her when other people, typically strong conservatives, vocalize that the content of The Day in the Life of a Showgirl, which I personally think is a very good album, has lyrics that are inappropriate for kids. And these same people who criticize Swift for taking advantage of her young fans are quick to point out, hey, she's 35. You know, she is not your babysitter, and it's not kids who are coming up with this money to buy these expensive tickets and things like that. It is the parents. So either Swift is taking advantage of her young fans or the parents are not doing a good enough job at protecting those fans. You can't really have it both ways, though. So my strong opinion of this is that whether you like the tactic or not, and for the record, you don't need all these album variants for Taylor Swift. Buy your favorite one and leave it at that. I mean, I used to buy them all. I probably won't this time just because financially things are tight right now and I just don't need it. Look, it's fun to have the multiple cover albums when you have disposable income and things are going fine. When the economy is not so fine and you're kind of watching your dollars, I don't need this. And that is a choice I have made. And, you know, she didn't force me to buy those albums in the past, and she can't force me to buy them now. That is a choice I am making. That is a choice you can make. But she is a businesswoman. This is her job, to sell her music. I mean, and again, let's kind of get back to that Michael Jackson thing for a second. Like, do anyone remember the History album? Which is a great album, by the way. But here's the thing. That was a double LP where one CD was a greatest hits set. Essentially, if you had all those old CDs of his, you had everything that was on that CD. And then the second disc was all the new material. This was where songs like They Don't Really Care About Us came into play. And the thing is, because it was a double album, he charged a double album price for it. But one of those albums had music that most of his hardcore fans already had. And he was basically sucker punching them into paying more for music they probably did not need to get the new stuff. Now, we didn't have the internet back then, so who knows if he would have been called evil or stuff for doing that. But it was a practical business decision. He was able to get away with it. And Taylor Swift isn't able to get away with this. Heck, she was so big, and Eminem was too, by the way, that when 1989 came out, her album, and the same year Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP 2 came out, both of them did not put their music on Spotify because they felt that music could be cheapened if you didn't buy it. They wanted people to buy the music. And people complained, they bitched and moaned about it, but you know what? Those were the two best-selling albums of the year, despite the fact that all these music critics and analysts said that those albums would suffer because they weren't on Spotify. No, they did not suffer. They said, hey, our music is worth buying, so if you like it, buy it, and people did. Because that's their job. It's not their job to give away their music for free. It's their job to sell it. And Taylor Swift did not put her music on streaming until Spotify and Apple came up with like $20 to $40 million checks and said, please, Taylor, let us stream your music. This is her job. Folks, this is her job, is to sell the music. And I'm sorry, she is not evil for pulling these stunts. She's a businesswoman. She's basically the CEO of her own company. Heck, she reclaimed the masters of her music. She is a smart, intelligent woman. She has really made a name for herself and has made a true business in an industry that continues to suffer because more people stream their music for pennies on the dollar than actually buy records. How many of you have your favorite artists out there and you haven't bought a single record of theirs, whether it's CD, vinyl, or anything? You probably stream it all and you're listening to their music practically for free. Taylor Swift found a way to sell you her music, and you decided to buy it. And if you don't like the practices, then don't buy the music. But she is not evil for using the advantages that she has. Because if people didn't want to buy her music, she couldn't do this. She absolutely couldn't. And, the economy's not great. Yeah, she's definitely doing the FOMO, fear of missing out thing with the younger fans for an album that I, by the way, think that younger fans should not be listening to, but whatever. That's her prerogative. And for those younger fans, if they want to spend their allowance on her music, they can do that. Heck, I spent my allowance on things that I don't even remember where they are anymore. I don't even remember all the junk that I spent my allowance on. We all do it. And if the parents are buying the music for the kids, that's up to them. They can say no if they want to. But anyway, that is where we're going to end this podcast. I now pass the question off to you. What do you think of Taylor Swift and the way she's been selling her music? Do you think that she's evil for doing so? Have I changed your mind? Have I put this into perspective in a way that you can see, oh, okay, maybe this isn't as bad, or do you still believe that this is wrong? It's okay if you do. That's what it's about. If you're listening to this podcast on a place that allows comments, please leave those comments. And if this is your first time here and you happen to like what you hear, hey, let's make it official. Subscribe to the podcast. We're available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, all the podcasting platforms of your choice. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Just a few more things. First of all, the names that you see on the screen, these are our Patreon and YouTube member supporters. And I thank each and every one of them. Their support helps me make exclusive videos for Patreon and YouTube members, as well as keep the channel running. And of course, is just of huge kindness to me. Also, don't forget to check out the iCritic-led podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Deezer, whatever podcasting service you listen to. It is there. We definitely want to see you there. And hey, there's also other videos that you can check out. So, check out these other channels, these other videos, especially that one. I think that's a really good one.